Well, welcome back to Education Matters. We are honored today to be joined by Representative Craig Horn, Republican from Union County, chairman of the House Education K-12 Committee, as well as Education Appropriations. So certainly the right guest to have on when we talk about school funding primarily today. Now, thank you. We talked to Sean Hamill from the Program Evaluation Division earlier about the new study on how schools are funded in North Carolina. I mean, why did the General Assembly ask for the study in the first place?
There's been a lot of back and forth on enough money, in going to the right places, how money is that would be how money is distributed, where it comes from. It was time again to take a look at this, as deep a dive as we could, and begin the process of a fundamental restructure on how we allocate money to public education.
Right. Now, so what do you hope to accomplish? I mean, sort of what is your end goal? You as the chairman, you're going to be the primary major player, certainly on the House.
Well, I certainly expect to be,
yes,
and I want to be. I'm very concerned, and have been for some time, and I think we all are, as to whether or not we're putting our money in the right places, in the right amounts, and perhaps in the right method, so that we meet the needs of the student versus the needs of a system or the adults, actually. So a lot of questions. We've got low wealth silos, we've got poor county, or we've got underserved kids, we've got rural areas, we've got high needs areas. So all of these things, after all these years of building a funding system, it's gotten a little complicated.
Right.
I'm the first to tell you, I don't have a firm handle on all of the silos and methods and means by which we fund K-12 education. A lot has changed in this state in the last 25 years, but we're still funding it based on the same model that we did 25 years ago. We just scaffolded it, and now we've come into a rat maze.
Right. I mean, no one can look at the current funding system and say there's all like 37 different allotments, all the different, and say, like you said, it's been cobbled together with good intentions over the years, but it certainly makes sense to take a look at now. But one of the things you asked the General Assembly asked the Program Evaluation Division to specifically look at another option, basically weighted student-based funding. I mean, is that something that you're already committed to, or it's something that's attractive, or sort of just wanted to learn more?
It's attractive. I do want to learn more. Am I committed to it? Not yet. I like the concept that it's based on student needs, as I said before, that it's student-centered funding, so that we get the money to where it's needed most, in the amounts that it's needed most. We untie the hands of folks that are at that point where the rubber meets the road.
Right, right. Now, the report, and actually, I mean, it's a very detailed and excellent report, but it only focuses really on the funding mechanisms and the structure itself. There's nothing in there about adequacy of funding. I mean, this doesn't get into the issue of, I mean, should the report, or should the general be really looking at not just sort of how the money goes out the door, but is it enough, and is it going to doing what it's supposed to be doing?
Is it enough? Is always the question. How much is enough? I think we need to add efficiencies to the process so we know whether we have enough funding here, there, or otherwise. I think the process will reveal more specifically, where it's not enough, or perhaps where it's misplaced, and one could maybe then characterize it as being too much. We've got too much emphasis in one spot and not enough emphasis in the other. So let's get a model out there that we think works, then let's plug in how much money, and then we can more properly determine if it is enough, and where our weaknesses are, where our opportunities are. And again, by focusing on the needs of the student, we're going to be more able to communicate to the legislature, to the people across this state that are paying the bill, that here's what you're getting for what you're paying, and here's how much money we need in order to deliver the kind of product that you want, a high quality education for every student in this state.
Right. Now, one thing, there was just read a report that came out earlier this year looking at states that had changed their funding formulas. A lot of them, you probably saw, it was a New York Times story, but it was another report from, I think, the Bureau of Economic Statistics, but it was about there were about 26 states, I believe, that had changed their funding formulas based on lawsuits similar to the Leandro case here. They actually found that the states that had shifted it to put more money into poor communities and poor school districts actually did see pretty significant increases in student achievement.
Well, those are high needs areas. It's very difficult for us to attract and retain high quality teachers and principals in some of our more rural areas. Teachers are people. I know that may sound like a shocking revelation, but at the end of the day and on the weekends, they want things to do. They want an opportunity to grow in their profession. They want some social outlets. They want to mingle with other people that can help them grow as people. That's difficult to find in some of these rural areas. So that's why we need to take a look at that particular piece. And the kids there, the kids are being left without. And no choices.
Let me shift gears on you.
Okay.
We're talking to you this morning right during the special session that's just been called. Dozens of bills. You sponsored a bill, HB 17, that dramatically changes the education structure in North Carolina. It takes away a lot of power from the incoming governor, who was just conceded to win the election a week ago. Why was that done now, and sort of you think that's where we should be going in terms of sort of how we handle election results?
Well, I'm going to differ with you a little bit to tell you that I'm not convinced at all that it's as dramatic as it's being portrayed. If we look back at the Constitution and we look back at the history of North Carolina back in 1995, there was a dramatic shift, if we're going to call this dramatic, a dramatic shift the other way. There have been lawsuits filed by our current superintendent over who's got the power to do what. But at the end of the day, the Constitution of North Carolina prevails. The Superintendent of Public Instruction is the Chief Administrative Officer of DPI and of education, K-12 education in the state. We've got an incoming Superintendent of Public Instruction who needs to bring his team or her team, should it be a her, but the incoming person needs to bring their team in and feel comfortable that this is the direction we're going and give them that authority.
Yeah, sure, that makes, but the State Board of Education, obviously there are some pretty dramatic changes, and the State Board of Education largely has very little power if this bill goes through in terms of setting policy. It all sort of shifts over, whether it's the Achievement School District, the Charter School Advisory Board. The governor no longer has appointments there, no longer has appointments in the Board of Trustees. It's a pretty dramatic shift. And I guess my question is, is this how education policy in North Carolina should be sort of handled? We're talking about something that was introduced last night, maybe voted on in 24 hours.
I don't think this is yet a policy shift. This is a structure shift. It's a shift to give the Superintendent of Public Instruction the authority that person needs in order to restructure. I think if there's any message that came out of this last election, from top to bottom, if there's any message, the public has said we want a fundamental change in how we do business, how we do the government's business. We want people to be involved.
Thank you for being here. You're always great to talk to, and you're always candid, and I appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Representative Horn.